Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 15 Glitch in the Matrix stories for you. In the twilight of Virginia Beach, a young boy questions the thin veil that separates dreams from reality. Case file number 2225, written by Doomed V, Mellow Yellow, Metallic Silver, and a red-lit drone. When I was young, I was living in Virginia Beach with my father, when my stepbrother came to visit from Colorado. The house we lived in at the time had a decent-sized in-ground pool in the backyard. The pool had a slide on the far side, and after that, a wooden fence leading to a football field-size open park surrounded by pine trees. This park is in the middle of a fairly large neighborhood, in the middle of a densely populated part of Virginia Beach. One night, my stepbrother and I are in the backyard swimming. The sun had just set, and it wasn't quite dark yet. There was still a slight glow in the air, probably just a minute or two from darkness. I remember my brother sitting on the edge of the pool with his feet in the water, as I was approaching the slide to climb the ladder and slide down. As I'm making my way up the ladder, I am stopped about halfway up, as something catches my attention in the air above the trees behind my house. I see what I can only describe to this day as a large floating ball of mellow yellow light. It glows very slightly, but doesn't really illuminate anything. It is the size of a small car, perhaps a Volkswagen Bug. It is close enough that I could probably have thrown a rock at it. It hovers for just a moment, making no noise and disturbing no wind, and slowly moves out of sight as it moves away from me beyond the trees. I immediately looked to my brother sitting on the edge of the pool, and I asked in a sort of bewildered state, "Did you see that?" I don't think he saw it, but I think my reaction was enough to scare him because he looked terrified. I jumped down from the slide, and I ran into the park in the backyard behind the house, and I'm searching frantically for what I've just seen. I see nothing. I come back, and I suddenly don't want to play outside anymore. My brother and I go inside. We both look shaken. I really made no mention of it after that. Fast forward perhaps a week or so, and I have one of the strangest, most realistic dreams I will ever experience in my life. There is a window at the foot of my bed in a cubby in the wall. The window has no blinds or curtains. My bed faces this window. Tonight, I am suddenly jarred awake, but the state that I'm in, I cannot describe as being awake. It felt like a dream. If you can imagine that state of being drifting off into sleep, yet still being aware of what's going on around you, it felt like a suspended state of animation. I believe that I'm awake and I'm looking around my room and seeing everything in my room in full detail, from the pictures on the walls, to the furniture, to the clock on my bedside stand. I vividly remember the red color of the numbers, but I can't recall the time. I'm paralyzed. I can't move, I can't speak, and I can't mumble. But I'm fully aware of trying to do these things and not being able to. As I'm laying here, trying to struggle with the idea of what is going on, I witness an object floating into the frame of my window from the outside of my house. My room is on the second floor. This object is oblong. It's oval, like a disc with raised centers. I want to say it has a metallic silvery color to it. What I remember most and will never forget are the lights on the front of this, what I will call a drone. In the center is one large red light, and to either side on the line of symmetry are two smaller red lights. This object is small enough to fully fit into the frame of my window. It stops and hovers right in the middle of my window. At this point, I am absolutely frozen with fear when suddenly, from 3 lights, across the middle of this drone is a series of lasers. Red lasers. They shoot out these lights and scan my room first vertically, from top to bottom, then horizontally, from left to right, all in one smooth motion. It lasted maybe 3 or 4 seconds. The lasers then shut off, and the drone moved upward, just as slowly as it had arrived out of frame, and up into the air to who knows where. As soon as the drone left my line of sight, I immediately snapped fully awake, in the same position that I had been laying in which this experience had happened, on my back. I run to the window after throwing the light on, slam my window open, remove the screen, and I'm hanging out my window looking for some sign of what I've just seen. After seeing nothing and sitting on my bed in bewildered disbelief for a good 10 to 15 minutes, I grab a pen and paper and some colored pencils. I write down a full description of what I had seen and draw multiple pictures. I still have those drawings to this day. I didn't really tell anybody for some time after all this, as I still don't know or believe if what I saw is real. I've never experienced anything after this, and to this day, I feel that if something had visited me, then it must not have found what it was looking for, because I was left with more questions than answers. I honestly don't think what I saw is what I really saw. I think it was some trick of the mind or something, some psychological phenomenon. But then again, if I have to try this hard to convince myself that it wasn't real, well, when I'm completely honest with myself, I have no freaking clue. Well, there are these hypotheses where dreams can connect us to other universes in the multiverse ocean. Perhaps in a different universe, there are more advanced drones patrolling the night sky. Honestly, that is terrifying, perhaps even more than aliens. Case file number 2226, written by Ash the Yeti. A Voice in the Void. When I was a kid, I lived in this tiny 2-bedroom apartment with my mom and sister. For whatever reason, I used to sleep on the couch in the living room, wake up at 3 a.m., and watch anime while I get ready for school and then sleep for a few more hours. I honestly don't remember why I used to do this. Anyways, one night I'm awake, it was probably around 2 or 3 a.m., and all of a sudden someone starts banging on the window and screaming. I mean, like, hysterically. It scared the absolute crap out of me. This went on for a good couple of minutes before it just stopped. The weirdest part was it didn't wake up my mom, my sister, or even my neighbors. And when I asked if they had heard anything, they told me no. Honestly, maybe it was just my imagination or some crazy old person, but I'll never know. Another incident that happened to me when I was in middle school, living in a house in the middle of nowhere with my family. It was a weekend, and of course I was sleeping in. My parents always hated that, and would wake me up all the time. So when I heard this voice in my ear say, "Wake up," naturally, I woke up thinking it's my mom or something. But when I opened my eyes, no one was there or in my room. So I thought maybe they came in a few minutes ago, and I'm just now waking up. Curious, I asked them if they tried to wake me up this morning. They both said no. To this day, I'm not sure if we're just hearing things or what, but it still freaks me out. Case file number 2227, written by Z Junk. The Fatal Flames of Fascination. Myself and some friends were sitting in the woods, back in high school, getting good and messed up. We had a bunch of beer, and had built a really good sized fire. We're miles from anywhere, kicking back, having a good time, getting snookered, you know. I feel something fly by my head, and watch as this large moth, good 2-inch wingspan, flies over me and heads towards our fire. He circles a few times, then, holy crap, commits kamikaze by diving into the fire. And I'm like, okay, that was weird, never seen that before. And then boom, it happens again. At this point, the conversation has been drifting for a bit, and everybody is just kicking back, smoking their cigarettes and not saying much. For the next 15 minutes, nobody says too much. The whole time, I'm watching hundreds of moths come flying out of the woods and pull kamikaze attacks on our fire. And I'm floored. I've never seen anything like this. So, like a good little messed up teenager, I start to wonder why nobody else is amazed by this thing. Then I start to wonder whether or not it's really happening, or if I'm just really good and messed up. Get to the point where I've convinced myself that I've lost my mind. I'm seconds away from running into the woods screaming. I'm sure that there's no way this is happening when my buddy looks up and says, "Hey guys, look, I gotta ask, are the rest of you guys seeing these freaking kamikaze moths, or am I losing my goddamn mind right now?" And all of us freak out, as we were all pretty sure we'd snapped. Yep, mass moth endings. Weird, most random crap that I've ever seen. Best explanation we could come up with was that the light from the fire brought them in, and they couldn't pull out in time. Well, I don't know, maybe this is normal, but I've never heard of anything like this happening. Obviously there's the moth to the flame meme, but not in this quantity, on a campfire. Never heard of that. Case file number 2228, written by Anonymous. Of Love, Starlight, and Simarik. I once had an online girlfriend who I loved very much. She lived in a city 1,000 kilometers away, but I broke up with her realizing that it couldn't work. This was maybe a few days before I started with senior college. I had great expectations in college. Hot girls, great friends, and all in all, a great and fun life. All of those expectations went to the gutter, but that is another story. 4 months later, the time came when the college festival was to be held. Auditions were held, and I was enjoying great songs by great amateur singers, one of whom was singing Simarik by Tarkan. Not exactly an unknown song, but because the song was in a completely different language, the boy singing it really impressed me. In the audience, or rather one of the competitors, was a beautiful, bold girl with glasses who seemed to be a fun-loving, carefree, and generally wild girl who happened to catch my attention. This girl was wearing something called a kurti, and most of the times I saw her in college, she was wearing a kurti and looked mesmerizing every time. I couldn't take my eyes off her for one simple reason. She was actually doing the kiss kiss part of the song. Since I am in India, that's pretty damn bold and pretty damn awesome, especially for a girl. Time passed and the festival drew near. I once caught her practice a familiar song. It was Starlight by Muse. A song I've been listening to almost every day for a while, but didn't recognize it when she was singing it. I loved it. I was intrigued by her. I wanted to talk to her, but somehow couldn't work up the courage. The days of the festival came, and the singing contest was held. She had qualified. Up to this point, I had no idea who she was, not even her name. Now comes the messed up part. Like my ex, she loved wearing kurtis, apparently. Like my ex, she wore glasses. Like my ex, she was exceptionally bold and exceptionally beautiful. Like my ex, she obviously had a passion for singing. They announced the name on stage and I remarked, impossible, because her name was the same as my ex. No, she wasn't my ex. They looked completely different from each other, but they had the same soul. I think there's a great cosmic love story that's brewing in this. Pursue it. Case file number 2229, written by Amazing Lexus. Hair up, game on. I will dream of a mundane conversation or activity, and a few months later, I will be halfway through said action or conversation when the dream flashes back into my head. Despite knowing what is going to happen next, I am unable to change any of it. The most memorable occurred when I was about 14 or 15. I played soccer at the time, and I had a dream about being in front of a mirror, like where the mirror and sink are separate from the rest of the bathroom, like at a hotel. And I was brushing my hair and putting it up like I always did before games. I quickly forgot about it, and a few weeks later, I accepted a position on a team that would be going to a national tournament in Tennessee. Flash forward like 6 months, and I'm in the hotel brushing my hair exactly like in the dream. The mirror, the sink, and room are exactly the same. Nothing else eventful happens, and I shake off the uncomfortable feeling and move on with my day. I talked to my dad about it at dinner one night that week, and he said that it happens to him sometimes as well. I've never had a single symptom related to seizures, and I'm not dying. I just have some strange dreams that come true. It is a phenomenon that, while a bit unnerving, is completely harmless and only happens occasionally, and a lot less as I've gotten older. Yeah, I think it's just a gene that's passed down. It's almost like the X-Men, where mutations can occur, sometimes truly extraordinary mutations. They can't break the laws of physics like in X-Men, but as long as they're within the bounds of physics, well, anything's possible. Anything could happen. We got so many tests going on, 8 billion of us. There's bound to be some extraordinary people. Case file number 2230, written by Cryptid Alley Cat. The Wind, My Dog, and the Voice. I was walking my dog once around the pond in my grandmother's condominium gated community. It was supposed to storm that night, so it was all windy all day, like tree branches violently flailing around and small items being blown away. I got to the front of my grandmother's building, there wasn't a soul in sight, and suddenly it got really quiet, which was weird because it was literally windy all day, but the wind suddenly stopped. I sort of looked around and felt off. It was the kind of quiet you could hear. Suddenly a big gust of wind comes in, and my dog starts freaking out. I tugged him to come towards the building so I could put the code in to get us inside, when suddenly I heard a voice go, "Hey," right behind me. It was like right next to my ear. I turned around, and there still wasn't anyone there. And my dog was still freaking out, so I dragged him inside, ran up the flight of stairs to my grandma's condo, and locked the door. I still have no idea what happened to this day. I should mention the gated community has a lot of buildings with geriatric folks living in it beyond my grandmother's condo. The area was used during the tuberculosis outbreak to bring patients to basically pass away, and they would cremate their bodies in a now abandoned building at the center of the gated community. I've also seen shadows in the window of the tower whenever I went to the park nearby. That is a heavy history to inhabit. Case file number 2231, written by Dun Dun. A strange morning surprise in Gettysburg. A couple years ago, I was camping with a couple of friends outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We arrived pretty late, and were not able to set up camp until after dark. Since the place we picked to camp was a national forest, camping prohibited, we went about a half-mile deep into the forest, and picked a camping spot that seemed level and had enough room for a couple tents. We figured that even if a ranger spotted our cars on the side of the road, he probably wouldn't go that deep into the woods to look for us. Anyway, the next morning, we were sitting by the campfire, pulling a little wake and bake and sipping on some brew when out of nowhere, this bike rider came riding through our little campsite. I think we all kind of thought we were hallucinating or something, and went back to what we were doing. 10 minutes later, a pack of about 40 bike riders followed, and they looked every bit as surprised to see us as us seeing them. Sitting around in our boxers, drinking beer and smoking at 10 in the morning. Not one of them said anything to us. They just looked at us like we were some kind of jerks for interrupting their bike ride, and rode around our tents. Never heard of a massive group of cyclists risking this kind of incident. Very odd. Anyway, we hightailed it out of there, since we were pretty sure the rangers would be looking for us if we didn't. Or hot on the trail of the cyclists. Case file number 2232, written by Modus Ponens, 66, a tangled mystery in the Ohio woods. I've had many WTF moments, but one in particular comes to mind. When we were young teenagers, my friends and I would often go hiking. Once, a friend and I were pretty deep in some woods near my house, rural southern Ohio, and we were off of any trail, just moving slowly through the thick brush and trees. Something heavy and leathery brushed against my face as I moved under a tree, and when I turned my head to see what it was, I realized that it was a snake about 2 feet long. The snake had a small slit in its belly, and its innards had been pulled out to the length of maybe a foot or so, and were wrapped on a low-hanging branch. The snake was obviously fresh, but was not moving, and there was little if any blood around the wound. I called my friend over, and we examined it, trying to come up with some explanation for its condition. We thought maybe it had fallen from the tree and somehow managed to snag itself, or perhaps someone had killed it. We looked around the brush, but couldn't see any evidence that anyone other than ourselves was around. After the initial surprise and curiosity, we started to get a really creepy feeling about the situation and promptly got the hell out of the woods. But I still don't really understand how that snake ended up disemboweled and hanging from a tree. That's creepy. Case file number 2233, written by Wild182, a father, a gang, and snowy dread. I was trying to get home from work, and it was snowing so the buses weren't turning up. I worked in a particularly rough area, so I phoned my dad asking if he would come pick me up. Began walking towards the town he would be coming through to collect me. I approached a road crossing and got a sudden feeling of dread. I was almost sure a car was about to hit me on this road as I tried to cross. I crossed carefully, and nothing happened, so I thought, that was strange, and continued. No less than 20 seconds later, someone grabbed me from behind and asked for my wallet and phone. I thought it was someone from work messing about, but when I turned and realized it was a complete stranger, I flipped the guy over my head and set off running. Anyways, this guy and his 5 or 6 friends quickly caught up to me and pushed me to the ground. Worst part was that this was at the side of a busy road with gridlock traffic. Not one person tried to help. Everyone just watched 6 or 7 people attack someone onto the ground, literally. I had zero reason to feel like something bad was going to happen, but I knew it was about to. I just got the actual event wrong. My dad also used to always call me or my sister when we were having problems, or were distressed for whatever reason. It's like he could sense it. Case file number 2234, written by Moto Blasted, the Cross-Continental Coworkers. When I was in college, I worked summers in a bakery. The management was terrible, and so as a result, there was frequent employee turnover. Among the many people I worked with the summer after my freshman year was one woman named Valerie. We worked some of the same shifts for 3 weeks until I went back to school, and since it was a small store, we got to know each other a little bit. The next summer, I visited my girlfriend in Israel. She was in school, so I spent a lot of my days wandering the streets of Jerusalem. One day I was in the old city, checking out the market, which was jam-packed. Hustling and bustling maze of stalls filled with haggling salespeople and shoppers. One of those places where you're always sidestepping and inching your way through the crowd. Out of nowhere, I see Valerie passing by my shoulder and call her name. She turns and recognizes me. Neither one of us could believe how we managed to bump into each other halfway across the world. I was and still am amazed by human capacity for recognition. Out of all the people I worked with that summer, and among everyone in the throng in the market, I picked her out immediately. Well, buddy, maybe she's stalking you. Maybe not, I don't know. Case file number 2235, written by Nope Never Nope. The Rain, the Road, the Median. I had a weird feeling about my car. No lights were on or anything, but something inexplicably felt off. It was a light drizzle, around 8 p.m., and I was driving from Maryland to North Carolina. I stopped at a gas station, checked all the tires, listened for anything amiss. Rain made that difficult to hear if anything was. Called my best friend, told her I had an eerie feeling, and started to make an appointment with my car shop in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, for the next day by texting a dad I babysat for, the owner, asking if I could bring it in. 10 minutes later, my tire popped, and my car spun out within 2 or 3 seconds going 80 miles an hour. I went 20 to 30 yards into the tree line in the median instead of under the tractor trailer to my right. Hit trees at every angle, and then grabbed my keys, backpack, and dog, and climbed out of the passenger seat to get out of my car. My car was fricked up. The final tree hit my driver's side and blocked me, and was relatively unscathed, apart from some glass shards and PTSD due to being seconds before fully mentally accepting my death. Checking my phone after, waiting for the ambulance and police to get there. The dad texts back asking what time I want to come in. I text him back, "Just kidding, my car is totaled." I don't know why I'm alive. I don't know why. I felt like I knew it would happen. I truly think I'm alive because I decided to stop and at least try to diagnose the problem, versus ignoring it and continuing. It's creepy, and I trust my intuition over everything, and always have. But this one messes with me. Case file number 2236, written by Kem Choi. The Entity Examination of District 2. I was 12 or 13. My family has been going to Vietnam every year or another year since I was young, and would stay at a random family member's house to save money from hotel costs. My family is huge. Anyway, the location this time is at my uncle's and aunt's place in District 2. I'm just a kid, so I share a bedroom with my cousins, aunt and uncle, while my mom, dad, and brother share another room next door. These bedrooms are upstairs. I randomly wake up in the middle of the night, and this never happens, I'm usually pretty good about not drinking too much water to need to pee, but just enough to sleep and not be thirsty. But when I woke up, I heard a very weird vibrating, humming noise outside. And at first I figured it was just someone coming home late from work, partying, and was on their moped and would turn off their engine. However, the sound seemed to be coming from above and not below. And the next thing I see is a giant flash of light going across the balcony right outside our bedroom. Everyone is dead asleep. My uncle is still snoring super loud and everything. I kind of freak out and close my eyes to just try and fall back asleep. But of course, my heart is pumping with what feels like adrenaline. Next, I feel and sense two entities standing next to me, to my right. And the next moment, my body lifts up off the bed. I can feel my sheets kind of just flop over and hang off my feet due to gravity. I can now also hear a new humming noise, and it's like I'm on a scanner. It goes up and down my body like an MRI machine. There's definitely a light and warm feeling going up and down as well. I'm, of course, still freaking out. I want to open my eyes, but I'm too scared to. Next, I feel one of them pressing down on my belly. The first time it felt like a squish just straight down into my belly. About equivalent to something weighing 5 pounds, super light, could have been a finger or a stick. I'm thinking, what the hell at this point, and I'm still freaking out. My heart is racing like crazy. Then the second time they poked me there, it went super hard. Definitely felt like a sharp stick or pipe pushing down on me with a force intending to pierce through. I'm now trying to scream and open my eyes, but my eyes are now locked shut. I can't open them, and my scream sounded muffled, like I'm screaming into a pillow, and the pillow has a vacuum abyss that returns no echo. I try again and again to move any part of my body, to scream and make some kind of noise, but all in vain. This goes on for a solid 15 seconds of excruciating pain, until one of my cousins turns in her sleep. I can hear our bed creak a bit, and I'm returned back to the bed softly, with the force on my belly releasing. As soon as my back hit the bed again, I open my eyes to see these entities I sense next to me, but they're gone. And the next thing I see when I sit up is that same flash of light, but disappearing, along with that mysterious humming sound going off into the distance. I look around the room for any signs of anyone noticing anything at all. My uncle is still snoring as loud as ever, and everyone else is also still sleeping. I'm now in a sweat, my heart still racing. I stayed up for the rest of that night. I'm shaking, remembering it very vividly like it just happened. Can someone just tell me was sleep paralysis, please? Well, I can't say it's not that. It could have been. That does sound like it could have been since you couldn't move, you couldn't even open your eyes. Although, normally in sleep paralysis you are able to open your eyes, so that is actually indicating that it isn't that. So aliens or sleep paralysis? Maybe it was sleep paralysis. I can't say. Case file number 2237, written by Anonymous. The Isuzu and the Cosmic Intruder. A long time ago, before most of you were born, I worked for a company in Montana, which required me to do a lot of driving around from town to town, city to city in Colorado, New Mexico, etc. One day I was driving from Denver to a meeting in Grand Junction. I had stopped in Vail for lunch before continuing down I-70 towards Wolcott, when I saw the strangest sight, and to this day I am not sure what it was. I came over a crest of hills and began to go down a series of switchbacks, when overhead zoomed on a huge disc-shaped object. It was black, circular, with blinking lights around the rim, and what appeared to be a space in the middle. I could see the clouds through it. It looked like a space station wheel, but it wasn't turning, just hovering over the highway. There was no way to tell how big it was because I had nothing nearby to give it perspective. I guess it was about 300 or 400 feet above the highway, and appeared to be perhaps 50 or 60 feet in diameter. I guess because I was driving a 1997 Isuzu Trooper, which is about 10 feet long. I pulled over and got out. I shaded my eyes against the glare, thinking maybe it was fatigue, although I felt perfectly fine, or sunspots. It was still there. Unfortunately, I did not have a camera, and it was before the time of cell phones with cameras. Otherwise, I would have taken many pictures. After a couple minutes, it began to move slowly up and down, all the while blinking these sort of off-white circles. I wouldn't call them lights, more like portals opening and closing, I could see what looked like clouds through them when they were wide open. After about 6 minutes of this, it turned on its side, literally like a wheel, and rolled away from me at a stately pace down I-70. I watched as it disappeared over the horizon. I was a little freaked out, so I stayed there another 30 minutes. It didn't reappear. I got back in my truck and proceeded down the road. When I got into Eagle, I turned off onto Highway 6 and drove out to the Eagle Country Regional Airport. I'm an amateur pilot, and I was sure that other flyers had seen the phenomena. I went into the office, but no one had seen it. In fact, they looked at me with the hairy eyeball, and I shortly left. I never saw that thing again. Case file number 2238, written by Hey Mister, the Uninvited Whisperer. My wife and I used to live in the upstairs loft of a small house. It was a small living room and bedroom connected to a kitchen, and just off the end of the kitchen was the bathroom. Wife and I laid down for the evening, and were talking in the darkness about nothing in particular. At a break in our conversation, I heard another voice very close whisper something. "Huh?" I said, thinking my wife had mumbled something. "What did you say?" she responded. "That wasn't me." "Stop it, that was you." We did that back and forth. Did you hear that? What was it? And at the next stop in our conversation, and quite unexpectedly, the light in the bathroom clicked on. The door was closed, and we lay there for several minutes waiting for nightmares to crawl out from underneath it and eat out our eyeballs. It took everything I had to get out of bed, open the bathroom door, turn out the light, and then come screaming back to hide underneath the covers. I think somewhere deep inside me is a fear of the dark. A few months back, I woke up and could have sworn there was a man standing at the foot of my bed. In a reflex, I grabbed my pillows from behind my head and hurled them at him. In the same instant, I hauled back the covers, curled up to my feet, and leapt into the darkness that contained nothing but my dream. I was ready to attack, but there was nothing there, and my pillows were now in the closet. Don't worry, we're all afraid of the dark. That's just something we say we aren't. But we should admit it. Case file number 2239, written by Stowe. A Dare in the Dark on the 10th floor. When I was about 14, me and a couple of friends were going on top of these 10-story residential buildings so that we could see the city landscape better. It was really nice to see all the lights of the city. It was around 8 or 9 o'clock during winter, and at that time it was already dark. We go from one building to the other till one kid mentions that in one of those buildings a kid had passed away when using the elevator. Probably a lie then, but the discussion quickly turned to ghosts, and how the ghost of that kid still haunts the building. So after 10 minutes of just sitting in one spot and talking about some freaky, made-up ghost stories, we decided to go to the one kid's garden, sit on a bench, and talk some more. To do this, we had to pass through another block of apartments' hallways, which was pitch black. We were all understandably scared from the previous ghost stories we had exchanged, so we all crammed together and tried to go through the hallway as fast as possible. When we get inside of the dark hallway, we see this old man on our right-hand side, whose face was white and wrinkled, dressed in a very elegant suit, with a cane in his right hand just idly standing there in front of a door with his back to the door, facing us and staring at us all the time from when we entered the hallway till we exited the building. He didn't say anything, nor did we. We just stared at each other all the way through the hallway. If this was not enough to scare the crap out of us, some of us, myself included, looked towards our left-hand side as well to discover that there was a mourning sign, a black ribbon, on the door this guy was facing towards. The guy looked typically dressed like you would expect someone being buried to be dressed in, according to local traditions. Needless to say that when we exited the building, we made a run for it. This is the main story, but later, just to make it even more messed up, after we had talked for hours about death and ghosts, all bullcrap stories by the way, we dared each other to go through the building again and see if the guy was still there. This time the light was on, so we felt a bit braver to face the hallway, which now was well lit. So then we bravely walked towards a long alley that leads to the hallway entrance, and the moment we actually enter the alley, the light goes off. We just stood there frozen for about 5 seconds, then decided to abandon it and take a long detour to our homes. Don't mess with the supernatural. We can't really test it, so we can't understand it. Now time for the jokes of the day. My wife used to be afraid of the dark. One night I turned the light on when I was naked. Now she's afraid of the light. Gotta hit the gym, buddy. What do you call a dinosaur that takes care of its teeth? A flossiraptor. My wife and kids are upset because I put ginger in their curry. They love that cat. Oh my god, this one's terrible. Just terrible. Why should you never eat a clock? It's too time-consuming. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 was odd. That's good. I always heard the one, why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 ate 9. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell.